video should have gone out on Sunday, but when I was editing I realised that I'd made a mistake. I spent about 3/4 of the last video's footage trashing the work of an archaeologist, historian, and then I realised when I checked what I was doing, I'd misunderstood something. What it comes down is that I wasn't aware that an inscription to somebody called Cuda was attached to a relief monument which showed a seated goddess and 3 cuculati. And cuculati are cowled ones. This is a cowl, a hood. All those 70s kids, when you went to school in the 80s, you had a cagoule. You too are cuculati. And what I realised was that you could link the inscription Cudae, which means to Cuda in Latin. So that seated goddess probably was Cuda, which probably means that there was an extremely important Romano-British god in this area, in the Cotswolds, that we now know is called Cuda, and I can't rubbish that at all. Now, the description in the historian's document, which was partially refuted by another historian who I agree with, who's done the etymology on the language, though he hasn't necessarily disputed that the goddess was called Cuda. But this other historian was trying to make the claim that Cuda is the goddess of the Cotswolds, and that the cut part of Cotswolds is Cuda. And as I said a couple of videos ago when I briefly mentioned this, it can't be, because that would have, today the Cotswolds would be called Cotswold, not Cotswold. That's because of the A ending on Cuda. In the early English period, that would have been Cudan or Cudair, and that an and air would have been lost in the Middle Ages. If the name was just Cud on its own, it would have come out as Cudeswald and then become Cotswolds, that S would remain as it does today. And I'm pleased to see this other academic, that was his main thrust of his disagreement, and I instinctively knew that because of my knowledge of Old English, which means I'm improving if I'm able to see that from a mile off, which I can. But that doesn't stop her being the most important goddess in the area. And we know that because Cirencester Museum is absolutely chock-a-block with images of the cuculati, her servants, and pictures of the mother goddesses, some which have different names. But there was an inscription to the mother goddess with a Latin word, which I shall put in here somewhere. So there was definitely, the Cotswolds was definitely an area dedicated in some sense to the mother goddess, probably Cuda. There are some more mother goddesses up north, but down south this is a cluster. It's very remarkable. And the cuculati are always, there's always 3 of them. They're hooded figures. They're not wearing duffel coats. You will often see Celts, British men in statuary in Gaul or whatever, wearing duffel coats. These aren't. They're clearly a cagoule. It's a hood and a poncho, basically. and you can see in one of the statues, one of the figures is raising up his poncho to show him holding his sword. So they're armed as well. These remember, civilians in Rome weren't allowed to bear arms. We've inherited that in our laws in Britain. Naughty Americans. So anyway, yeah. So, but let's put that to one side a second. This article, because there's an inscription in Spain, trans Cuda. We think that Cuda there was a river. So this academic thinks it's something to do with the river and tries to make the link between Cotswolds, which is part of Cutsteen, Saxon charter, saying that was Cuda's well, which is why I was in Cutsteen to do this footage. I've got two questions today. One is, can we invent a goddess, and should we? And two, where is the Cotswell? Cotswell, and which is in the, it's definitely in the parish of Cutsteen. Yes, I'm back here again because there's unfinished business. But I've been looking for this stream. Now I have a stream here in this valley. This is the advantage of going out into the field to have a look. This isn't marked on the map as far as I can remember. It's a total surprise coming across it. It goes down to the Windrush, which is the wrong name, but we'll go into that later. The paper that we've been looking at about the goddess Cuda goes on to mention a lost Anglo-Saxon stream called Cotswolds, which is mentioned in a charter with more than one clause in it, which mentions a place called Washbourne that is meant to be between the Geitingbrock and Yellowford. And if you remember back 5 videos, those two locations are the east and west ends of the parish of Cutsteen. So that lost stream is here. Now he says that the Codes part means Cudas, but that breaks the rules of Old English. It should be Cudan or Cuda, possibly. So it can't be, but it's still a lost Anglo-Saxon river, and I'm going to try and find it. And I think I might have done, because a later clause in that charter goes on to describe the Mons Whichorum, which means the hill or mountain of the Whicher, which is the local Anglo-Saxon tribe. And it goes on to mention that another name for that point is Cotswell, which means that I might have found it because the English Place Name Society thinks that Mons Whichorum is Cutsteen Hill, and our stream, the stream that I've been looking at here, goes up it. It doesn't go a great deal that far up it, but it does head towards it. It is going up that slope. So I might have found it, which is, 3 or 4 times a year I come up with something new, and I think I might have done, which is very exciting indeed. Our paper then goes on to discuss how the Windrush behind me can't be our missing river because it already has a name. You might ask me, well, how can a river have 2 names? Well, the classic example is the Thames and the Isis, even though Isis is made up by antiquarians, and that will be a theme today. But on the map it's got 2 names. Today on the map is called the Windrush, and in Old English that is Wenrish. I forgot what it means, but it's partly Welsh. But it's misplaced. It's further on down there. It is the Windrush there, the Wenrish. But it is We know from two Saxon charters in that direction over there that it goes up the other fork, essentially. This way we know from the Charter of Cutsdean, well, it has two names. It has, at its head, it has the Awelm, the first spring, and coming back around the perambulation, going up the hill, then coming all the way back again, it says the Geiting Brockes, and that should give you pause for thought, because this is one of the few things that you don't need old records for when investigating the landscape. You can look at the names of villages along rivers and see if there's an older name than the one marked on there at the moment. And you'll see two villages called Geiting Power and Geiting Temple Geiting. The ing part could mean one of two things. Could be the followers of a man or a woman, and the other one is the ing could represent inch, which is found in ink pen and wantage. It basically means river, stream, watercourse. So the fact that this river today is called Windrush, the mapographers should have looked at the villages along it and gone, why are these two places called Geiting? Should it not be called Geiting? And we have to go back 1,000 years to look at what the Saxons tell us. So he already has two names. Look at me, I'm Tom. I'm also known as Bob's son. I'm also known as the BFC, which is Big Friendly Giant, but with giant replaced by cut. So things have more than one name, more than one way of describing what they are. This is a very modern idea, to have a final descriptor that is permanent. This has thrown me into disarray seeing this stream here, but a delighted disarray, because this wasn't marked on the map as far as I can remember. And we are looking, everybody knows that Cotswell is somewhere in Cutsdean. It's just argued about whether or not it is the Windrush. This is Daglingworth, and what a pretty valley it is too. It means the farm of Dag Cow and his followers, maybe his sons, whatever. What a charming place to settle for an anglo-saxon, but it was settled before him. Just over there is between the corner of that field between us and the church is a Roman villa found in the 1690s, and that's where that relief, that statue of the goddess and her followers was found. And now the inscription, Roman Inscriptions in Britain website shows the inscription, authenticates it essentially, because it's an honourable website of academics. But I shot up here in the car to the museum because I knew it was in there, and I've done some footage of it. I can't see it is. If it was there, it's been severely weathered since. But I have to trust senior academics, people who really know their business. I don't have to trust people who I think are hoodoo peddlers. But I don't think that is the case here. I suspect. I mean, I can see marks on the relief, but I'm not 100% convinced it's as clear as the inscription says, but maybe it's been weathered, maybe it was there, it's been recorded, and we have to accept that that's the truth. But it says Cuda loyu, and there's a missing, could be loku or something like that. There's a letter missing, probably a consonant, and this academic thinks it's loci, as in genius loci, a spirit of place, but it is the word genius that is the spiritual part. The locus just means place, doesn't have to have a spiritual connotation, so really stretching the logic of it. But it is, the Cuda means to Cuda. Almost definitely the most important person in that relief is the person called Cuda. So it is, I have to accept it. There are some, she's not the only goddess in the god in the area. There are Mercury comes up quite a lot in my research years. Of all the parishes I go to, you will find Mercury come up, and he's quite a devil. Honestly, you should see his face. He's like, you could understand why the Christians went, no thanks. It's you can, his eyebrows go up like this, and sometimes he's got horns in his head. It's supposed to be like little wings. But he's the messenger of the gods, but he doesn't half look devilish. It's really very disconcerting looking at him. Did I hear thunder then? Anyway, so she's not the most goddess, but the most. She isn't the only god in the area, but she's definitely, of all the things that have. All the objects have been picked up, she seems to be the most significant in the area. So what a pretty valley. You can understand why they would choose to live here. It's interesting that the Anglo-Saxons just came along and took over the estate. This is another case of continuity. I'm used to in Berkshire. I've made the case that when the English came, it was a form of ethnic cleansing. They might, I'm not saying killing, but they said, we're the bosses now, you speak English. Almost definitely. There's just nothing left, But in other places in the West Country, you see the English coming here and not setting up their villages away from the villas, but setting them up really, really close to them, or even inside them. So this is another case of that. Cirencester is a case in point, though its inside was ploughed when the Roman army left. So it became like an estate, a really grand estate centre with huge walls, but it got reoccupied pretty quickly. So you're showing continuity there as well. So is Cuda the mother goddess of the Cotswolds? Yes, she could be. Did she give a name to the Cotswolds? No, she didn't, for the linguistic reasons that I gave. Now there is some torturous, difficult logic been proposed to try and shoehorn her into the Cotswolds, but it doesn't work for me. It is interesting that there is a Roman inscription up in the frozen north for Coda's cohort, or some Roman unit. And they think the name was either Coda or Codius, the masculine form. If it was Codius, it could come out. If it was Codius down here, it could come out as Cotswolds. But it's a mother goddess, not a man. So no. As for the river, I still think it's Code is the Codes well. is the well of Code, a man called Code, and besides, it's nowhere near here. A poet has tried to shoehorn her into the River Churn, but the river that passes Daglingworth is the Duntisbourne, and we know that for the simple there's a technique that anybody can use to investigate the landscape, and that's to look at rivers and see if there are any village names with bourne in them that might produce a name that is different from the river name today. So Collingbourne is an example. That river is no longer called the Collingbourne, but it definitely was because of that place name. So here we have the Duntisbourne, and that's Dunt Stream, a man called Dunt, and there's two villages called Duntisbourne on there. So she might have something to do with the river, but I have a feeling that we are talking about other aspects. We're talking about nurturing. So she has in next to her either a basket or a bag, and she dispenses goodness, good things from it. Her servants, in some reliefs, have bags themselves, which they may be distributing good things out of that too. So I don't think she's a river goddess at all, regardless of the Spanish connection. So anyway, I thought I'd correct that. This video is quite late. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope to see you on the next one. Ta-da for now.